Rugby World Cup 2023, folks. All Blacks taking on Italy this Friday, or Saturday for those of us here in New Zealand, from Lyon. It is a knockout game for the All Blacks, given that they have, for the first time in their history, lost a pool game. They need to beat the Italians to keep their hopes of a quarterfinals berth alive. The Italians are 2 from 2 thus far. However, they haven't played either the All Blacks or France just yet. So they certainly have their biggest challenge still to come. But yeah, we'll go through some squads, some recent history, some stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. So like I said, the fact that the All Blacks dropped that France game, there's a little bit more pressure. A little bit more pressure than normal. But the All Blacks have never lost to the Italians. Across their last 5 games, they've won all 5. Remembering, they were supposed to play at the last World Cup, but that game didn't end up getting played. It was canned because of the typhoon over there in Japan. So the most recent game was 2021, where it was pretty convincing, 47 points to 9, although the All Blacks scored like 4 tries in the last 20 minutes, which kind of blew out the scoreline. It was a bit tighter than maybe the final score looked. But then you also got to take into account the Italians haven't scored a try against the All Blacks since the game in 2016. Their last 2 games, 2018 and 2021, all their points came from the boot. 47-9, 66-3, and there's a 68-10 there. So the results have tended to be pretty lopsided between these sides. The Italians have tended to be on the wrong side of a pretty big scoreline against New Zealand. But hey, it's a new match. Like Kieran Crowley said, basically the history is there to be broken. And what better time than to get it done against an Ian Foster coached All Blacks side. But speaking of Ian Foster's selections, he's picked a pretty strong team, and he is bolstered by the return of some of his injured players. Tu'ungafasi is still there. Cody Taylor comes back into the squad as hooker, and then Nepololala is still your tight head. Tyrell Lomax is in the side, having come back from that big cut that he got on the leg against South Africa just prior to the World Cup, but he is not chucked back into the deep end. He is on the bench for this one. Brodie Retallick and Scotty Barrett are preferred as the locks, which means Sam Whitelock, who's going to break Richie McCaw's All Blacks caps record, will have to do so from the bench. And then back row is bolstered by the return of Shannon Frizzell, who's been injured, but prior to that has been one of the form players here in New Zealand. At number 6 has been in pretty devastating form. Dalton Papali'i is still there at 7, been an absolute tackling machine, certainly alongside Whitelock, one of the top tacklers for the All Blacks this Rugby World Cup. He's managed to get a couple of games with Sam Cane having those back spasms. Sam Cane, like Tyrell Lomax, is back into the squad, but they're not risking chucking him into the deep end either. He is going to be coming off the bench, and Ardie Savea captains the side at number 8. He's been doing a fair bit of carrying and a fair bit of offloading, which is what we like to see from Ardie. That's one of the strengths of his game. They've returned to the more familiar 19 combo of Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga for this one. Remember, both guys were on the bench for that last game against Namibia. And another one of the injured guys, and Geordie Barrett, returns to the side at 12. So with the return of Barrett being Geordie, Kane from the bench, Whitelock from the bench, and Frizzell starting, the All Black side is much more what we think Fozzie's preferred kind of starting 15 actually looks like. Rico Ioane is also back into the starting lineup, having been on the bench. He's in the number 13 jersey. The wings have changed with Will Jordan and Mark Talia being back. They'll be looking to cause some havoc against the Italians. And then Bodie, who is, I think, the top carrier from fullback, is there at fullback. So, yeah, it's a changed lineup. Remember, the All Blacks have been sitting for a week with the week off. But yeah, they'll be raring to go. Dane Cole's on the bench alongside Tamaiti Williams and Tyrell Lomax as your front row replacements. So first time we'll have seen the big unit that is Tamaiti Williams at this World Cup. Whitelock, Kane, some experience. And then Cam Roigard seems to have maybe supplanted Finlay Christie as the second choice number 9, which I think a lot of All Blacks fans were pretty happy about because his running game is genuinely pretty devastating. Damian McKenzie is on the bench, and then likewise Anton Lienert-Brown, so 5-3 split. Ian Foster talked about Tyrell needing to get some more game time. Sam Cane needed to tick a few boxes through his training week to make sure he's fit to go. But yeah, they didn't want to risk him. So yeah, that's your All Black squad looking pretty strong. For the Italians, they've changed things up a little bit from their side, which played last week, but it's still Fischetti, Nicotera, and Riccioni as your front row. They'll need to get at least parity And imagine if they can boss the All Blacks front row around a little bit. I mean, Lolala has not been the most convincing of tight head props for the All Blacks. So Fischetti and Riccioni are pretty good scrummaging props, man. So that may be an area for them to target. Dino Lam is preferred to Nicola Cannone in the second row, alongside Federico Ruzza. So it's I guess kind of an interesting dynamic with those two guys. Kieran Crowley talked about wanting to get a bit of extra height, but I think him and Cannone are pretty much the same height, but that's why Dino Lam is preferred for this one. Sebastian, Negri, Michele, Lamaro, and Lorenzo Cannone are the back row, and those guys are genuinely classy operators, man. I mean, Lamaro has been tackling the absolute house down, even against some of the teams which, Italy have a lot of possession against. Like, he's still getting 15 plus tackles a game. He is a real workhorse. And Lorenzo Cannone is a great ball carrier. Yeah, he's really devastating from close range. The All Blacks will have to be mindful of him. Varney is the preferred guy to come back in at number 9 after it being Alessandro Garbisi the last game. Paolo Garbisi switches from 12 back to maybe more familiar 10. And then Luca Morisi and Juan Ignacio Brex are the midfield. Kieran Crowley did talk to Morisi's return to the 23 in basically being that he's played a fair bit with Brex. They know each other pretty well, and it's an area where they want to maintain that kind of cohesion. They don't want any gaps in that midfield, so that makes sense to me. Capuozzo switches back to the wing for this one, so Tommaso Allan switches from 10 to fullback, so you've essentially got the dual playmakers going on, and Kieran Crowley made no bones about the fact they will be kicking to this All Black side, so they've got a few good kicking options in that back line, and then Ioane, who has been pretty devastating for the Italians, more so than he looked in Super Rugby this year, as they're on the left wing. So there's some danger men in that Italian backline. Jaime Fiver comes in as the reserve hooker alongside Neymar and Ferrari as your prop replacements. Nicola Cannone drops to the bench. Zuliani's been great at his cameos from the bench as well as the loose forward. Good jackler, good tackler, and then it's a 6-2 split because you got Toa Halafihi as another loose forward replacement alongside Page-Relo and Odogwu. Odogwu is pretty versatile. He can cover many positions in that back line to allow them to go with that extra forward. We've had a lot of carries from Garbisi and Ioane thus far in this Italian campaign, and Ioane has been offloading a fair bit for a winger, which is good to bring some of his other guys into the game. I mentioned Lamaro's tackling. They'll have to be on form defensively for sure. Predictions-wise, the All Blacks are favourites. Given they haven't conceded a try against Italy since 2016, maybe that makes sense. They haven't played that many games, but last 2 games, the Italians haven't managed to try. 30 points. 30 points, say the bookies. 28, says the Rugby Forecast algorithm. So the All Blacks predicted to be pretty comfortable winners. And essentially, barring an upset from Uruguay in their final game, booked themselves passage into a quarterfinal. But Italy's still got a game against France to go. Remember, it is on at Lyon. It's a 9 o'clock kickoff, so it's the late kickoff, which is great for those of us in New Zealand because it's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, which is pretty decent. Matt Carley from England is the referee. We will see how things go. A lot being made about how Kieran Crowley used the word bully. They're going to try and bully us up front. Somehow that became a big thing in the press conferences, but trying to boss teams up front, bully them up front, dominate them up front, whatever word you want to use, tends to be a good platform for some winning rugby. So, yes, whoever gets some dominance up front will likely have a good day at the office. You guys let us know your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.